Thanks very much for joining me on Faces Friday. I'm Lynn Sherritt, and today I'm having a conversation with Michael Fullan. Michael Fullan and I have worked on system and school improvement since 2002, a very productive time for us both. We've written articles together and we've written two books together. The first one, Realization, the Change Imperative for District-Wide Reform, was in 2009. And Faces, putting faces on the data, what great leaders do, and I would say what great leaders and teachers do, we wrote together in 2012. Listen in as Michael and I discuss our journey together and then thinking about our future together. What does the future hold?
Okay. So it's interesting to think back. I think it was 2002 when we invited you to come and be our critical friend, knowledgeable other in York Region. And and then I think you brought in your colleagues from U of T, right? From OIZ.
Probably Carol and then eventually Joanne.
And then Blair.
Blair, yeah.
Yeah. And then we did the literacy collaborative, and you always the three or four of you did that beginning each time.
Yeah.
And then we wrote our first book in 2009.
Right. Yeah.
About that work, and then in 2012 we wrote Faces.
Yeah.
We did a few journal articles in between, I think.
Yeah. It was very productive in terms of foundational stuff of our thinking.
Absolutely. So where do you think we've been since then, since 2012, 10 years on?
Well, I'm thinking, did I send you,
Yeah.
I did a report on, I released it February 12th called The Right Drivers.
Yes.
A new version. I sent you that, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's where my thinking is really trying to see how we transform the system. And then when I look at the big picture, broadly, what I see is we had an enormously productive decade, 2002 to 2012.
Absolutely.
You did, we did, me with Dalton McGuinty, and it was really great. And then from 2012 to the present, it's been weak, I guess I'll say, and bumpy. I'm talking about the world too. And I include Ontario, and I include Kathleen Wynne's term, about 5 years, because although she had the right ideas, it never really got situated well. And then when I look around the world, that macro analysis I did about the economy was, we had the big recession in 2008 to 10, and it rebounded on, it hurt the poor more. The banks did fine, but there was it just was part and parcel of the growing inequality financially that started in 1980 and went to the present. So in this, I'm talking rambling a bit, but my point is, and I quoted in the Right Drivers Report a nice book that came out about 6 months ago from Robert Putnam called Upswing.
Right.
And he did this analysis, he and his colleague, going back about, almost 100 years. And they grabbed these periods that they call I-ness or we-ness. And I-ness is self-centered, and Donald Trump is the epitome of that. And we-ness is when there's some degree of wanting to do something for the public good. So you really actually see, and if we take the US, because they keep track of the data, they don't change as much as they should, but the data, and you see that the I-ness period after the Second World War till about, almost to the time I'm talking about here at the end of, let's say 2008 or so.
Yeah.
And then you get this I-ness period all the way through up, and it actually started a bit before that, all the way up to now the recent present. And then you get now the present we're in now, or the time we're in now, is possibly a rebound into a more positive we-ness phenomenon.
Yeah.
So if you go back, if I go back to your literal question, I think we had, you may have a different interpretation. You and I had a good heyday in the decade 2002 to 2012. then we did our individual stuff in the last 10 years, but
Yeah.
system stuff wasn't very impressive.
No.
And now we're back into the possibility of system stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that, because in Faces we wrote, excuse me, we wrote that we needed to move from an I culture to a we culture. That was something that we talked about throughout it, and that was really manifested in putting faces on the data.
Yeah.
It's all about our collective responsibility and accountability. I even remember us writing about responsibility comes first, and then you said, and if that happens, accountability just falls in line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So we can pick up these, we can thread these themes now. It'll make it more interesting, the revision.
absolutely. Looking back and then looking forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my work has really been about systems, but also classrooms, and how we really have to focus on that strong pedagogy, which seems to have been lost.
Well, all of us have a chance to continue our work in creating a we culture of purposeful collaboration. As well, we agree that we must all focus on pedagogy from the system level, from the school level, and in every classroom. Thanks so much for joining me on this Faces Friday. See you next week.